So yesterday I put out a video tier ranking all of the Green Bay Packers 2024 rookie class so far throughout OTAs, rookie minicamp, and minicamp. Now, we haven't seen much of them. The pads haven't even came on yet, but I still wanted to create a beginning ranking so then we can come back after training camp and also next year and see how correct or how completely wrong my original rankings were. And after doing that video, it got me thinking, why don't I do another tier ranking, but with the 2023 rookie class, as now we've seen a full season of these rookies. And we're starting to get a better idea of the outlook of that rookie class. And I'll say this before we dive into it. I think Brian Gutekunst absolutely hit that one out of the park. The 2023 draft class is an amazing one. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to tier rank the 2023 Green Bay Packers draft class in today's video. If you happen to be a new viewer here and want to stay in the loop with everything Green Bay Packers this offseason, training camp is just over 1 month away, and you don't want to miss out on all the content until then. And then, of course, when training camp starts, there's a ton of content that drops on this channel. So again, go down and click subscribe if you haven't already. Also, leave a like on the video. It supports the channel a ton. Thank you guys. Before we dive into the video, I want to give a big shout out to today's video sponsor, Mando. Guys, if you don't want to stink like every single Chicago Bears draft class, then I would highly suggest checking out Mando, and new customers get $5 off their best-selling starter pack with code PACK, P-A-C-K, at shopmando.com. I've been personally using Mando the past few months, and I've been very happy with the results. It's usually a very tricky process for me to find a deodorant that I actually like and works, but it has been a very pleasant experience with Mando. What I also really like about Mando is that it's a whole body deodorant created by a doctor. It's made with mandelic acid, which picks off odor from the start. It's available in solid sticks, invisible cream, cleansing bars, and also body wash and deodorant wipes, which are included in the starter pack. Luckily, I do have a discount code for you guys to get started with Mando. New customers get $5 off a starter pack. That equates to over 40% off your first starter pack. That's with code PACK, P-A-C-K, at shopmando.com. All the details are also down in the description. Again, that's code PACK, P-A-C-K, at shopmando.com. All right, so now back into the video, and we're going to bring up the screen, and just like yesterday, we have our tier list, but I added one more tier, and I added an F tier, and that's because I'm just going to get this right out of the way, and that's Lew Nichols going to the F tier. He was a 7th round pick. Last year, didn't even make the roster. This happens, some draft classes, especially when you draft 13 players, there's a high likelihood that one of those players probably won't make the roster. Now, Lew Nichols was placed on injured reserve after training camp, but then released on September 7th. He's now actually with the Philadelphia Eagles. And you would also say, Grant DuBose technically didn't make the roster, but he's still on the roster now, so I can't put him in the F tier as well. This is a made tier just for Lew Nichols because he's not on the Packers roster anymore and he didn't even make the roster. That moves me on to my next player in the 7th round, which is Grant DuBose. Like I said, I'm not going to place him in the F tier because he's still on the Packers roster, but he didn't play in a single game last year. He was on the practice squad the entire year, and I still have some high hopes for Grant DuBose. He looks lighter this season. He looks quicker this season throughout OTAs and minicamp, but he still has a tall hill to climb in terms of making this 53-man roster, because I feel like wide receiver is the most stacked position on the Green Bay Packers, and he's not one of the 6 that I believe will 100% make the roster, and I just don't see the Packers holding 7 wide receivers. I mean, they very well could, but then you'd argue that the 7th guy could even be Samori Toure because of what he offers on special teams over someone like Grant DuBose. So, again, Grant DuBose as a D tier here. Didn't play at all last year, a 7th round pick out of Charlotte. Now we have 2 other 7th rounders that actually saw a decent amount of playtime last year. We have Carrington Valentine and Anthony Johnson Jr. Now we'll start with Anthony Johnson Jr. Although Anthony Johnson Jr. saw 334 snaps, and that is impressive as a 7th round rookie, he was also the 2nd lowest graded defender on the Green Bay Packers, and technically the lowest graded defender if you're taking into how many snaps players played, because Zane Anderson was the lowest, but he barely played any snaps, and that was with a 47.9 PFF grade. He had 20 tackles, but he missed 27.3% of his tackles. He had a pretty significant missed tackle rate last year. He wasn't great at tackling. Now, where he was better was in coverage. He only allowed 5 receptions on 7 targets for 60 yards, had an interception, and only allowed a 57.7 passer rating. And so far, Anthony Johnson Jr. through OTAs and minicamp is the starter next to Xavier McKinney. I don't think that's going to last long, and I really like Anthony Johnson Jr. You know, watching his tape out of Iowa State last season and what he can bring to that safety room, I do like, but I think at this point, after the Packers drafting 3 safeties, there's a lot of other guys that are simply just better than him, but based off of 2023, I think Anthony Johnson Jr. goes in the C tier here because he wasn't the best, but he also saw a decent amount of snaps as a 7th round rookie, which is impressive. The Packers safety room was pretty much in shambles last year. You know, you had John Owens, Rudy Ford, Darnell Savage, all of which that aren't on the team anymore. And this safety room is going to take a complete turnaround. And like I said, Anthony Johnson Jr. has been starting through this offseason so far, but I think that goes away very, very quickly, and I think Javon Bullard takes his job very, very quickly. But based off of 2023, I do think Anthony Johnson Jr. is a C-tier ranking here. So next we have Carrington Valentine, the last of the 4 7th-rounders for the Green Bay Packers. And this one was a little bit tricky for me to whether I should put him at A tier or B tier, but based off of being a 7th-round pick, I don't think there's any way you can't put Carrington Valentine as an A tier player from this draft class. I mean, 7th-round pick coming out of Kentucky. We saw it as early as training camp, this guy getting starting snaps and making plays in practice, then getting thrown into stardom once Jair Alexander goes down and really stepping up to the plate with that next man up mentality. And he produced and, you know, could very well be starting cornerback opposite Jair this upcoming season, depending how that battle goes with Eric Stokes. You know, last year he allowed 40 receptions on 72 targets, so not that bad there. 470 yards. He did allow a touchdown, but he allowed a passer rating of 80.2, which isn't that bad at all. It's not the greatest, but it's not bad. And he also had 5 pass breakups. I love his demeanor. He gives it off the same energy as Jair Alexander, kind of that aggressive lockdown, man-on-man outside type of cornerback. So I really liked what I saw from Carrington Valentine in year 1. And at minimum in 2024, he's going to be a rotational depth cornerback. And if injuries happen, he can step right up into a starting role. Very impressed with him in year 1. So I think he 100% deserves A tier. Then we have 2 6th-rounders for the Green Bay Packers. That is Anders Carlson and Carlos Brooks. And man, they couldn't be more of the opposite in terms of production or how well they played in 2023. You guys know how high I am on Carl Brooks, and about everyone doesn't really like Anders Carlson. I still have high hopes for Anders. I believe the Packers believe in him, and he's going to be our kicker for 2024. But at the end of the day, he definitely did not have a good 2023, and that's why I'm putting him here in the D tier. I know some would argue, hey, why don't you put him in the F tier? He was one of the lowest percentage kickers in the NFL, which is 100% true. He had the 7th worst field goal percentage in the NFL last year. He missed 6 PATs, but he was 29 of 36 on field goals. Like, it was bad at times, but it wasn't god awful. And I also attribute that to the process a lot. With Matt Orzech snapping, that process was not good. Daniel Whelan did wonders on Matt Orzech's horrible snap. Somehow Daniel Whelan still got that ball in place, but again, the process was messed up. And when the process is messed up, you can't have continuity there, and it's hard to consistently make kicks, especially as a rookie kicker. But the talent is there for Anders, and I think if he gets it all together, I think he can be a very, very solid kicker in the NFL, and I think that's what the Packers think as well. So I couldn't put him at F with a guy like Lou Nichols, who didn't even make the roster, because Anders, you know, made the roster, played the entire season, had his struggles, and still remains on the roster. So I think it's fair to put him at D here. Then we have Carl Brooks, the other 6th-rounder, one of my favorite draft picks from the 2023 draft class, a guy that I had mocked to the Green Bay Packers a ton, mainly in the 3rd to 4th round. So when he fell all the way to the 6th and the Packers selected him the 6th, I was super excited for him, and he did not disappoint. Carl Brooks had an awesome season considering being a 6th-round pick, so I'm going to put him also with the A tier with Carrington Valentine. Carl Brooks had 30 pressures last season, including 4 sacks. He had 12 tackles, an under 10% missed tackle rate, and also 6 tackles for loss. And I think he's definitely going to take a second-year jump in 2024, especially considering the Packers' new defense under Jeff Hafley, this new 4-3 scheme. I think it's going to benefit Karl Brooks more, and he's versatile. You know, he's mainly going to be on the inside, but you can play him on the outside if you want to go early downs against the run. I was very, very high on Karl Brooks, and it seems like every game, the guy, when he got on the field, he made a play. So for me, that's easy, a 6th-round pick, you know, getting significant amount of snaps and producing, that's easily an A tier for me. And I think Karl Brooks could end up being an S tier player after the next couple of seasons. The Packers had 2 5th-round picks. That was Sean Clifford and Dontavian Wicks. We're going to start with Sean Clifford, and I don't know where to put him just because he didn't play, but you didn't want him to play. Like, Jordan Love is your quarterback. You draft Sean Clifford to be a backup quarterback, and in terms of that, I think he did an okay job, right? He didn't come onto the field other than to kneel the ball a couple times. I thought he looked pretty decent in preseason. So far this offseason, he hasn't looked good, so this could definitely change. But I think you just kind of put him at C just because, you know, you drafted a 5th-round guy to be a backup quarterback, and that's exactly what he was. I wouldn't give him more of a negative rating just because he didn't play, because the only way he would have played if Jordan Love got hurt or played horribly, and that's completely out of his control. So Sean Clifford at C, I think, just feels right. Next, we have Tay Wicks, and if you guys know me and know my channel, I think he's honestly my favorite Green Bay Packer overall right now, because I love the wide receiver position. I love seeing these guys go to work. And man, I think the most intriguing one right now on the entire roster is Tay Wicks. But at the same time, I'm still going to only put him in A rather than S because I want to see him make that next jump. If he makes that next jump this season, which I think he 100% will, I think he really could become a number 1 wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. And I'm very, very excited for him. Tay Wicks had 41 receptions, 605 yards, and 5 touchdowns last season. He was the 2nd highest graded wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers with a 77.8. The highest was actually Bo Melton, interestingly enough. And Tay Wicks, man, the guy, how he runs his routes, he can play outside, he can play inside. He's an artist at running routes, and like I said this so much. It's like a broken record. He reminds me so much of Davante Adams, and I'm very excited for year 2 of Tay Wicks. You know, he had 600 yards, and I think that's great for a 5th-round rookie, but if he had like 800 yards to 1,000 yards, I think I would 100% put him in S tier, but I'm going to try to be a little less biased here just because of how much I love Tay Wicks and put him in A tier, but I think 100% he'll be an S tier player next season. Then in the 4th round, the Packers selected Colby Wooden out of Auburn, and I was questioning whether to put him in C or D here, and I think I ended up going with C because he still, you know, had a decent amount of stats and play time. But the reason I wanted to put him lower is because someone like Karl Brooks, who was drafted 2 rounds later, ended up playing better than him, producing more, getting more snaps. So it's kind of I guess a little bit of a disappointment out of a 4th-round pick. But there's still a lot of potential here with Colby Wooden. Like, he didn't have a bad season by any means. You know, 12 pressures, 1 sack. That's not bad at all for a 4th-round rookie. He had 14 tackles. Not a great missed tackle rate at 12.5%, but not awful like an Anthony Johnson Jr. And he had 1 tackle for loss. It simply just didn't play that much. It was kind of like a redshirt season for Colby Wooden, but he did play a little bit. So I think C is fair. I don't think putting him to D is realistic just because, you know, he still played, and there wasn't like times where I was like, oh, wow, Colby Wooden is really bad, and this guy is a bust for a 4th-round pick. Like, you see the potential, and you see it going into 2024. So I think C is fair until further notice. Then we move into the 3rd round where the Green Bay Packers selected Tucker Kraft, and I think he's going to be the player I put in the B tier list. I'm very tempted to put him in A tier just because of how Tucker Kraft stepped up in the absence of Luke Musgrave. But he also started the season pretty poorly. Like, he wasn't playing well at all, but then once he got thrown into stardom, he really arose to that situation and became a startable tight end for the Green Bay Packers offense. And man, he really showed up onto the scene. But at the end of the season, he ended with 36 receptions, 379 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That was the 4th most receptions for all rookie tight ends, 1 below Luke Musgrave, who was 3rd. So I think Tucker Kraft being in the B tier here is fair. 3rd-round pick, right? Second tight end drafted in this draft class, but produced when needed. Then we have Luke Musgrave, and I was very tempted to also put him in the B, but I think I have to put him in A tier just because he missed 5 games, yet still had more yards than Tucker Kraft. 418 yards on 40 receptions, 2 touchdowns. He was the 3rd highest graded rookie tight end in a rookie class that included likes of Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid. The 2 tight ends were graded higher than him, which had amazing seasons. And I think if Luke Musgrave had played a full season, didn't miss those 5 games, probably would have somewhere close to like 600 yards, which would be a very impressive rookie tight end season for sure. Tight end rookie years are hard to produce. Not often that rookie tight ends produce like this. And Luke Musgrave, you see the massive amount of potential he has for being such a dynamic weapon for this Packers offense. And you saw that. You saw, glimpses of that. And then the continuity started to raise towards the end of the season, him and Jordan Love. He finally was able to stay on his feet a couple times and get into the end zone, especially against Dallas there. Luke Musgrave, the potential is sky high. I was, again, tempted to put him on the same page as Tucker Kraft, but based off of stats and based off of him, missing 5 games, which I guess could be considered a negative, I just felt the need to put him in the A tier with Valentine, Carl Brooks, Tay Wicks, and now Luke Musgrave. Next, we have Jayden Reed, and short and simple, he's the only S tier player, in my opinion, in this draft class. Some people could argue that one of Tay Wicks or Carrington Valentine could be an S tier player, but I think the one that does deserve it is definitely Jayden Reed. This guy was such a massive weapon for the Green Bay Packers offense in terms of receiving. Had 68 receptions, 828 yards, 8 receiving touchdowns, but also utilized in the running game. 128 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, totaling 10 touchdowns, which is tied for most with all rookie wide receivers with Jordan Addison. I mean, this guy just came right into the slot role and perfected it almost, and is going to be a joy to watch in this Packers offense for many, many years to come. Like I said, Jayden Reed and Tay Wicks, I'm super high on both of these guys. I think they have the highest potential out of all of these wide receivers. And that's saying a lot because, Christian Watson still has a ton of potential. Romeo Doubs, Bo Melton, there's so many guys on this roster that could become, true number 1 wide receivers. But Jayden Reed is already, in my opinion, a premier slot wide receiver, and that's after 1 season, his rookie season. I was questioning the pick after the 2nd round because I didn't do much research on him because he didn't fit the Packers threshold. But after looking at his tape and doing research, I understood it. And I was like, wow, this guy is a weapon, a dynamic weapon. And he proved that to be true in his rookie season. And I think he 100% is an S-tier draft pick in the 2nd round. And again, just added to the long list of Green Bay Packers 2nd round wide receiver draft picks that turn into something great. Then finally, we have our 1st round selection, Lucas Van Ness, and I feel like a lot of fans are definitely split on him. I thought he had a pretty decent rookie season, but based on the fact that he was selected 13th overall, you still would have liked to see a little bit more production. And you could argue that, having Rashawn Gary on the roster and Preston Smith, kind of held him back a little bit in terms of the amount of snaps he could get, but I still think he produced with the snaps he received, kind of similar to a Tucker Kraft. So I'm going to put Lucas Van Ness also in the B tier list. LVN ended with 22 pressures, which was 6th best for all rookie edges. He ended with 6 sacks, including playoffs, which was 5th best for all rookie edges. He had 25 tackles, a low 6.1% missed tackle rate, and also 9 tackles for loss. And I'm very tempted to put him up to A, but I think just based off of, where he was drafted and, kind of being behind Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith, I think it's fair to put him in B. And I think he will take a sophomore jump here in 2024. I think the Packers are going to utilize him a lot more, especially being in this 4-3 where you can put him inside if you really want to and say a 3rd and 12 for him to get after the passer. Like, he played inside a lot at Iowa, and I think the 4-3 just fits him so much better. And I think Lucas Van Ness is just fit for this defense, and it's going to be, in my opinion, a good year too for LVN. But in terms of year one, I know some people are definitely disappointed because it's like, okay, it's a 13th overall pick and he didn't produce a crazy amount like some of the other early edge draft picks. And I get that, but the potential is still very sky high for Lucas Van Ness. So that does it for my tier list for the Green Bay Packers 2023 rookie class. I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Which ones do you agree with? Let me know your rankings down in the comments below. I do appreciate you guys coming by to the channel and all the endless support. Seriously, thank you guys so much. I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go Pack Go.